ECCYC is a free channel, presents the Word of God for everyone. Your support will help us to continue the mission. Visit our website, ECCYCnow.com. Even $1 will make a difference.
I just want to say, you guys are the best group of guys. I'm very, 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 very proud of you guys. Honestly, you guys, you play hard, you've been praying hard, you've been giving me your attention, you've been paying attention. That shows an into regala, right? That you guys can use your minds, you can use your hearts and your spirits, you can use your bodies. I was so proud, most beautiful sight in the world, than to see, 100 guys, as many guys as we could, doing prostrations, asking God, that's the spirit of our church. And you guys have that. And I find comfort knowing that you guys are the future of the church. It's wonderful. God bless you guys. All right. So I'm sure at this point you're like, Abuna is really like, what's wrong with him? Like, is he really that much of a downer? He's always talking about the devil, and he's like a master on the devil. Today I want to hopefully uplift your hearts, your spirits. I need everyone to make sure that they're awake. We have armed servants in the room. Okay? Okay? Everyone, I see everyone's with me, and I'm proud of you guys for that. All right. Now, we're talking about the way that we see the world, right? Talk 1 was about going into the world. We walk in every day in our schools and with our friends, in our communities, in our churches, in the mall, everywhere we go. We're walking in, we're talking about how it is that you view the world. And we talked about how we need God to open up our eyes to see the world as it is, because there is a system and there is a mind behind the system that is seeking your destruction. And so if I told you that there were real snipers in this room, and I told you that there is maybe a terrorist, rumor has it, somebody told us, a CIA called us, said, be careful, we heard that there's something going on in the room. There's a terrorist somewhere. Are you going to just come and sit down with haga? Huh? You will? You're going to walk in here, I need everyone's attention. You're going to walk into this place very alert, knowing exactly, every time somebody sneezes, you look at them, you're like, maybe it's him. Right? You're going to have your eyes very alert, very open, knowing that the mind behind the system is lurking behind you, and he's trying to seek our destruction. Today what we're going to talk about is, how do we change our mind? How do we renew our thinking? How do we have a new mentality? I'll be honest with you. A lot of the times, you say, Abuna, these words, they're spiritual, they're nice. I love them. But my mind is always thinking evil. My mind is thinking automatically, the first time when I see a girl, it's a bad thought. When I go to this place, automatically, my natural desire is a wicked desire. How is it that I would change my mind? How is it that my mind would be transformed where I'm no longer afraid of my own mind, my own heart? We're going to talk about a little bit what the Bible says about the heart. In Romans chapter 12, verse 2, this is a golden verse. I know some of you guys were writing notes. I don't know if you have paper now. This is a golden verse. You need to know Romans 12, 1 and 2. What does it say? And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable, perfect will of God. It says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. If I were to ask you, if you guys could make some changes about yourself, what would you change physically? Maybe you'd be taller. Maybe you'd be stronger. Maybe you'd be skinnier. Maybe you'd be shorter. Maybe you'd have a smaller nose. Maybe you have a bigger nose. Maybe your ears would look normal. Maybe, right? Maybe I was, let me get everyone's attention. Let me get everyone's attention. Maybe I wish I was more athletic. If I could change things about the outside of myself, I wish my hair would look a certain way. And we know that we as high school people, okay, we care about our appearance. And a lot of us on the inside would love to change so many things about the outside, and you can do it, right? You can get a haircut in a certain way. You could do all kinds of things to change the way that you look. But that's not the hard part. What the really hard part is changing things on the inside. If you could change something about yourself on the inside, now I need everyone's attention. If you could change something about yourself on the inside, think about it for a second. Use your minds. What would it be? Maybe would it be my impatient spirit? Would it be my temper? Would it be my critical tongue? Would it be the lust in my thoughts or in my mind? Would it be that I would change my uncontrollable sexual temptation? If you could change something on the inside, what would you do? What would you change? Can everybody identify one or two things that say, man, if I could change something on the inside, this is what I would change? I told you, there are times I find myself impatient with my kids. I love my kids to death. I have the best kids in the whole world. But there's times when you have a 4-year-old, a 15-month-old, and a 6-year-old all in one house, and they haven't taken their naps, and they're not fed well, and they're really picky. You want to kill somebody, okay? I wish that I could change. I wish I didn't want to kill my kids sometimes. I wish. I wish it just came naturally where every time they're fussing, I say, Habibi, come give me a hug and kiss. I don't want to hug and kiss them. I want to spank them, okay? I'm joking. I'm joking. You're like, no wonder why our kids have these funny impressions of God. My point is that there's things inside of me that I wish I could change, but to be honest with you, I can't. I can't. If there's anything we know about human nature, it's that people change slowly if they change at all. Have you ever seen somebody just change something on the inside, like overnight? Have you ever seen anybody just change overnight? You know, maybe somebody in the house, maybe dad is angry or dad is extremely stressed, that you told him some nice words and dad is no longer stressed for a long time. Does that ever happen? No. It doesn't happen, right? We know human nature that people change slowly. It's that stuff on the inside that we can't seem to fix, which is why the whole world, that's why Oprah is the richest woman in the whole world, right? Because everybody wants her to fix their problems, and Dr. Phil, and everybody's watching these shows thinking, how could I fix my problems? You go to any bookstore, the section for self-help books is enormous. Everybody's trying to figure out, what can I change about myself? And how do I do it? I try, and I try, and I try, and it's unsuccessful. Romans chapter 12, verse 2 tells us that our perception or our view of the world can be altered or changed when our minds are renewed. How do we renew our minds? We must be transfigured on the inside. Why do I use the word transfigured? You guys know what this is? Feast of Transfiguration. Very good. Okay. You guys remember 7th grade science class? Earth science? What's metamorphosis? It's a rock. Sorry, parents, that's recorded on CYC. It's not a rock. Okay. Metamorphosis. Huh? Okay. When a caterpillar turns into a... Okay, very good. Okay, there's also rocks that metamorphi. Okay. I don't know if you guys ever seen the show, The Mighty Morphin, what? Power Rangers. It's the worst show in the entire world. It's a show that was made in like Japan that has been dubbed over in English. It's the absolute worst show in the world. You're like, hey, Biaboon. It's the worst acting. It's terrible, okay? But when they wanted to change, what would they say? It's morphin' time. When a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, is it changing its nature? Is there something that it becomes that was never inside of it originally? The caterpillar always had the potential, has the stuff and the nature inside to become a butterfly. On the inside, it's a butterfly. But eventually, after it transfigures, or it morphs into a beautiful butterfly. In this icon, when Christ took the 3 disciples on top of the Mount Tabor, Mount of Transfiguration. When Christ went up there, what does it say? He says he went and shining white clothes, and they could see like the glory of Christ transfigured. He looked different. Was the Jesus that was transfigured? Was what he was displaying something that wasn't already in him? What do you think? So Christ decided, hey, I want to show my best buddies. I want to show my best friends, servants. I want to show my best friends what really is inside of me. And so what did Christ do? He transfigured. He transfigured. He manifested something that was already inside of him. You know, when Romans 12 uses the word be transformed by the renewing of your mind, the word means be transfigured. The word means be transfigured. It's related, like I told you, to metamorphosis. What is metamorphosis? It's a gradual change on the inside that produces a total transformation on the outside. Pay attention to what this means. Everyone wake up. Everyone wake up. Pay attention. This is really important. It's a gradual change on the inside that produces a total change on the outside. So what we need to do is if we want to change the renewing of our minds, we need to change the inside. And we believe that when God transfigures what is on the inside, it'll be manifested on the outside in my behaviors. All right? When you were baptized, remember how I told you you were given something when you were baptized? Talk 1. I said we have physical eyes, and then what happened? You were given spiritual eyes. You were given spiritual ears. You were given a spiritual heart. And you were given the mind of Christ. You were given the mind of Christ. When the Holy Spirit was given to you on the day of your baptism, you were given the mind of Christ. If I asked you boys, how many of you wish you could have the mind of Christ? Anybody here wish they had the mind of Christ? I wish that I automatically thought like Christ did. But St. Paul says, who has known the mind of the Lord that we may instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ. St. Paul is saying we have the mind of Christ. It is in you. We just need to bring it out. We need to make sure that it is manifested in every part of our being. And we're going to get into what that means. Okay? What does it mean to have the mind of Christ? It means that we have the ability to estimate the true value of things. You know, in the art world, there are certain people who are art appraisers, right? And they could show you a picture and look at it, and they would be able to discover whether, does this come off? Right? They would hold up a picture, and they would be able to look at it and say whether it is in, how much it's worth. It could be a piece of junk, $50 piece of art, or it could be a Rembrandt, and could go up to $7 million. And there are fakes and there are real. How is it that an appraiser gets to the point where they can appraise the true value of things? And that's exactly what it means to have the mind of Christ. To be able to look at things and understand their true spiritual value. Are you guys with me? Should I bring it down a notch, or are we mature enough to understand? Okay? Today, in order to become an appraiser and ascribe value to a piece of art and say, this is a Rembrandt, it is worth $7 million. You know, there's a show that's called like the Antiques Roadshow. It's a very popular show, right? Every episode, it'll tell you somebody about who bought a lamp or an old trunk at a flea market for $40 and discovered it's worth like $10,000. And it's this whole new thing of people be able to discover that something they bought has a much greater value. You want to know what my biggest fear is? Is that this generation, servants, that this generation is completely unaware of the true value of spiritual things. That this generation does not understand the value of spiritual things. That when we say, guys, hey, let's pray, we're like, oh, نصلي تاني. Or when we say, hey, let's do this or let's do that, in our mind, our appraisal of spiritual things is what? No value. No value. So I won't do anything because I haven't been able to appraise its true value. Paul says that St. Paul says because we have the mind of Christ, that we can properly appraise the real value of things. And I used to live in Kenya. I used to live in Kenya in 2005 with my wife. And before I went to Kenya, I had a very good job. I was an active servant in my church. I had a lot of things going on that were very blessed. And we felt God pulling us and calling us to go serve as missionaries in Africa. And so we decided we're going to leave our job. We're going to say bye to our parents. We are going to get rid of our stuff. And we're going to move to Africa. And my parents flipped. Yani, we left Egypt to bring you to America. You're going to leave America to go live in Kenya? Doesn't make sense. But you're a servant here. You're serving in the church. You're active. You're enjoying the service of God. Isn't that enough? I'll tell you. The best days of my life, when I was living in a village in the middle of Africa with little running water, with no electricity, but I was living in something with tremendous spiritual value. I'll be honest with you, when I came back, my work took me back, they gave me a promotion, all these things worked out for us when we came back, supposedly worked out. I'd never been more depressed in my life. I was living in a village, right, where we used to have on our walls blood stains from all the mosquitoes that we were smashing on our walls because they would bite us and we'd have to smash them, so there's blood stains all over our walls. It was disgusting. But if you told me, Abuna, what's the best time in your life? What had the most powerful impact on your life? When could you ascribe the greatest value of any experience in your life? I'll tell you, it was when I was living in a village in Africa among the poorest of the poor. You say, how is it, Abuna? Believe me. Believe me. There is no comparison. If you told me to leave everything again and go live in a place like that, I know and I've discovered that the true value of things was living in the experience of God. And that every day I could experience that God is with me and that God loves me, that God hears my prayers, that God can change the world because of my work and my service. Not because I'm a saint. No, my point is not to tell you that Abuna Paul is a saint. My point is to tell you that it's inside of you. And that's your potential. And that if you were transfigured, if you let the inner great things that were inside of you, if you let them out, you'd have a transformation. My brothers, it is extremely important that we understand how to estimate the true value of things. So how do we get to change? Go back to the illustration of the art appraiser. So you're not born with ability to know the difference between a Rembrandt and a piece of cheap art. But it takes a lot of practice and a lot of time. And one day, that appraiser who was studying and learning and getting deeper in his understanding of art was able to say, no, this is a true Rembrandt piece of art. It is worth millions of dollars. Did it come overnight? No, it takes work. Servants, and everybody with me. You want to know what's the biggest problem with Christians today? It's called play it safe Christianity. It's like, I'll do everything that I can do without having to pay a price. Nobody wants to pay a price. And so now our faith is a cheap faith. It is basically like, you want me to go to church on Sunday? Sure. You want me to Yani, say Our Father as I'm falling asleep and getting onto my pillow? I'm happy to do that. But don't ask me to pay a price. And that's where we will never understand the true value of things. If you understand the true value of God, you'll be willing to pay a price. If I ask you guys, hey, the other day we convinced you guys to fast Ramadan we asked you guys to fast a full day in Ramadan, we were joking, right? And it was like the end of the world. Tomorrow if I told you, hey guys, there is a fast that came up that Pope Twitters decided, hey, we're fasting for 3 days, what would be the response? Yo, and we would flip out and we don't like it and we're sick of it, right? Because we don't understand the true value of spiritual things. We're going to talk about that. How do we get to this point? The first thing is the second thing is we must reprogram our minds by the change of our environment. How many of you can identify an environment that you have, potentially at school, potentially in your neighborhood? Let me get everyone's attention. You have an environment that you know needs to change. You know that as long as you are like this, your mind will never change. All your friends are always talking inappropriate. They're always saying sexual jokes. They're always making fun of each other. They're always speaking aggressively. They're always living in a certain culture. If I told you, stay in that environment, but I want you to change, can you do it? No. Can you do it? You can't. You can't. You must change your environment. I remember when I was living in Kenya, I'd been there for a while, and I used to Skype my parents every month or so. I'd Skype and talk to them. And we had one of the Kenyans came into the house, and I said something really quick without realizing it to them in Swahili. And my parents are like, what happened to you? And I'm like, what? I didn't realize what. They said, you're speaking Swahili now? I didn't realize that living in the environment, I'm not studying Swahili, living in Kenya, hearing Swahili, being around Kenyans, in a Kenyan culture, what happens? My mind became programmed according to my environment. If you go live in China, okay, if you go live in China for 6 months, whether you try or don't try, you will start to be programmed like a Chinese person. Right? Right or wrong? You ever see like a Saidi person taken out of the Said? When they first like come to America, a Saidi person, they're like in another world. It's like they're in a completely different world. You ever hear the saying, you can take the boy out of the ghetto, but you can't take the ghetto out of the boy, right? No, you can. You change their environment for a long time. You might see somebody who's coming from a village in Egypt, within 6 months is speaking like an American, listening to American music, dressing like an American, talking like an American, joking like an American, sinning like an American, doing every single thing like Americans do because of the change of environment. Are you guys with me or not? If you guys want to change your minds on how you see the world, you have to be willing to pay a price. Everyone, I'm up here. You have to be willing to pay a price. And sometimes that price is going to call you to change your environment. Can you identify in your mind some type of environment that needs to change? But Abuna, this has been my best friend for like 10 years. The renewing of your mind. The renewing of your mind. You want to get rid of that potty mouth? Stop listening to that music. Stop listening to the music. You want to get rid of those lustful thoughts? Stop watching what you're watching on TV. And I'm not talking about pornography. I'm talking about just like the sexual environment that we find in our culture. We're immersed in it. So everything in our culture is sexual, and so everything in our environment has made us think relating everything to sexuality. Right or wrong? Friends, one of the most popular shows on TV, right? It's a story about a bunch of young people who live next door to each other. Kul shwaya, they change boyfriends and girlfriends. The whole thing is about sex. The whole show is about sex. It's every joke, everything goes back to sex. Most popular show in America. Everything goes back to sex. Everything you see in the mall, the fashions, everything you see, it all goes back to sex. Right or wrong? We need to change our environment. So how do we do it? I'm going to give you guys some instructions on how to do that. First, we must not think that the real mind change is impossible. If I tell you guys, hey, you guys can have changed minds. You can think purely, servants, you can think purely, and you can understand pure things, and you can understand godly things and spiritual things. If I told you that, would you believe me? You say, Abuna, I've been praying for this stuff for years. I've been trying, Abuna. I can't change it. I can't change it. I go through the same struggles as you do, boys. I'm a man. I have struggles. I want God to work in me the same thing that He works in you. But I'm going to be honest with you. Number one, it needs us to pay a price. And number two, it needs to have the faith that we can change. Do you believe that you can change or not? You guys are distracted. I want everybody looking up here. Do you believe, number one, that you can change or not? That's the first thing that the devil is telling you, that you can't change it. This is going to be too hard. These addictive behaviors, year after year, I'm miserable. We seem to go through the same old ruts. I don't blame you for thinking that the real change is impossible. But God tells us He can change us. God tells us to be transformed. He tells us, I will work in you, and I'm going to show you how that's going to happen. Don't think that you need some sort of miracle experience like Baba Krolos does not need to appear to you, or some crisis moment to happen for you to be transformed. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that you just try harder and you'll get better. So what does that mean? I don't try and God will change me? Like, what a lot of us do is that, okay, I'll try. I'll read my Bible for 5 days. And then what happens? We fail. We fail. We give up. Let me get everyone's attention. We fail and we give up. And so, the message today is, what do I do? Do I just wait around and say, God, you can fix me? It's a cooperation. It's my will working with God's grace. God's grace is there and it's initiating. And God's saying, I will give you my grace. I promise you, I will give you power to become victorious. Who would think somebody like St. Mary of Egypt? Do you know St. Mary of Egypt, her story? She was a harlot. You guys know what a harlot is? She's a prostitute, okay? For how long? 17 years. And then when she had her conversion, do you know how long she struggled with the sin of fornication? Another 17 years. And I'm like, man, please don't tell me that story, Abuna, because it's going to make me feel discouraged. But this woman, we cannot talk about repentance at the Coptic Orthodox Church without mentioning her name. Transformation. 17 years as a harlot. She was a harlot. She was a prostitute. Every bathroom wall had her phone number written on it. She was known by every single person. To the point that she sold her body. She sold her body for the ship fare to go to Jerusalem to expand her business. Imagine. She was so well known in Alexandria, which was a big metropolis at the time, that she sold her body saying, hey, let's go to Jerusalem. Maybe there's more there. Who would think? Who would think that somebody like St. Mary of Egypt could be changed? It is possible, and my brothers. Please don't think that it's not possible. So what do we got to do? 1 Corinthians 9:25 says, everyone who competes in the games goes into a strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. St. Paul is saying the reason why people can change is because they go into a strict training. I used to have a friend that was Mr. California, okay? Mr. California, he used to lift weights. He couldn't touch the top of his head because his arms were so big. Yeah, you could only imagine. You could probably get a picture just by looking at me for a few minutes to understand what that would look like. Mr. California, okay? He showed me pictures of when he was like 20, and he became Mr. California when he was 23. He was a twig. He was a skinny little Egyptian kid that everybody used to make fun of. He committed himself to working out and training. He became Mr. California. If I were to show you a picture of him, you'd be extremely embarrassed. But it's incredible. He had muscles like in his nostrils. Like there was muscles everywhere. How did he do it? How did he do it? How is the strict training? This is the secret to overcoming those seeds that are planted in your heart. I'm going to give you the secret today. We need a spiritual canon or a spiritual rule. And I'll explain what a spiritual rule is. You know monks of the desert, what do they wear under the galabeya? Do you guys know? They have something part of their uniform they wear under their galabeyas. That's the very, very high monks. But the average Joe monk, he wears a belt. And if he's a size 34, okay, he wears the belt at size 34. Type. What do your dads do after they have dinner and they sit on the couch? They sit down. Right? Stomach is hanging. And they give themselves room to say, let my stomach grow. But when you're wearing a belt tight around your waist, 34, what do you have to do to make sure that belt doesn't hurt you? Because no monk wants to go to size 35 on his belt. Okay? What do you have to do? You got to make sure that you discipline yourself to a point that you do not stay at a 34. You discipline yourself to make sure that maybe I can go down to a 32. And when you've disciplined your body enough to get down to a 32, what do? Tighten the belt. You tighten the belt. And that's what I'm telling you about your spiritual life. And I'm going to explain what that means. We give ourselves too much room to relax. And it is the times that we relax that the devil keeps those seeds planted in our minds. We need discipline. And a spiritual law or a canon is something that is given to you by a father of confession that will tell you a certain discipline that you have to abide by every day, and it's the law. You know the monks, they have to pray all 150 Psalms, or they have to read the whole Agbayah every day. Okay? The monks of the desert have to read the whole Agbayah every day. If they've been working all day on the farm and they get back to their cell and it's 11 o'clock at night and they're dead tired, what do they have to do? They have to finish their canon. I'm not going to tell you to read the whole Agbayah. We're going to start very small. Very, very, very small with a canon for high school boys. And as you go and you feel like, I can do this canon, I pray my Psalms, and I do so many a day blindly where I don't think twice about it, what are we going to do? Tighten the belt. Add a little bit more. Discipline ourselves a little bit more. Why? I'll explain why. Your heart is like a battlefield. Your heart is a battlefield. And the devil is planting seeds, and God is planting seeds, and we got to get rid of the bad seeds because the good seeds can grow. Because what you have, the wheat and the tares. We have bad weeds that come out alongside the good stuff. And so how do I get rid of the roots? What the desert fathers teach us is two things. From the Bible, do you guys know what Nehemiah did? What did Nehemiah do in the book of Nehemiah? What was his mission? He built the walls of Jerusalem. There's a movie called Troy, okay? What's the actor's name? Brad Pitt. Do you guys know what was the secret of the country of Troy? Why that nobody could destroy the country of Troy? So they lived on an island, right? And as soon as any enemy would come from the water onto the sand, they would see walls that were like 100 feet high. They were the strongest walls protecting the city of Troy that nobody could defeat the Trojans. And so what would happen was, the people would stand on top of the wall, the Trojans, they would stand on top of the wall every day and shoot arrows at any enemy that was coming, and nobody could defeat them because of their walls. What Nehemiah did is he built walls around Jerusalem. Jerusalem is your heart. The way to build a wall around your heart so the devil's arrows don't get into your heart, that those bad seeds don't slide, and the lust and the anger and the hatred and the insecurity and the low self-esteem and the doubts and the lack of faith and I don't believe in God, all that stuff, build walls around your heart. And that's going to come day by putting a building block through prayer. The Psalms have a mysterious work. The devil cannot handle the Psalms. He can't handle them. They destroy him. They are the inspired prayers by God in the Bible for us to pray. Why? When we pray them every day, they are building walls around the heart to protect it. What happens if you miss a few days? You're leaving it open. Do you guys know how they overcame the city of Troy? The Trojan horse. So the enemies one day realized, we can't get over that wall, so let's just retreat. And they came up with a plan. They decided they were going to build a horse, a huge metal horse with all the stuff that they had, their shields, whatever, and they built this huge horse as a gift to the city of Troy, saying, hey, we retreat, we surrender, forgive us. The people of Troy celebrated, they relaxed, they felt, okay, our enemies left us, we're okay. They brought in the Trojan horse, they had their parties that day, they went to sleep. What happened? The enemy was hiding inside the horse. And they broke through the horse and they went through the city. They destroyed all of the Trojans, all the people of Troy, because they got inside those walls. We need to make sure those walls are fortified. My brothers, every day we need to pray at least 3 Psalms. At least. We're going to start small. Start small. If I told, how long would it take you to read a Psalm? One of those paragraphs in the Agbayah. How long? 2 minutes if you're a bad reader. So let's just say 2 minutes. Right? Probably about 45 seconds, let's say a minute and a half to read one. So to read, I'm just giving you an example. If you were to read 3 Psalms a day, how long would that take you? Probably not 3, let's say 4 minutes, 5 minutes, okay? With prostrations, every time going down. I told you the mystery of the prostration, of the matanya. I told you what it does. First thing is build walls around the heart. The second thing the Psalms do is they dig up the things in the heart. They dig up the things that are in your heart. Everyone looking at me? Those seeds that are planted, consistent, prayerful, requesting from God every day in your Psalms, trust me, over time, it's a slow change. It's a slow change, but you'll find that those evil thoughts that you're always thinking about are going to go away. You want to know what your biggest problem is? Is that we obsess over the sins that we fall in. Abuna, but I fall in this terrible sin every day or every other day, and I'm sick of it. And we obsess it. We turn it into this huge monster. You want to know what the devil doesn't want you to do? He doesn't want you to expose that sin. The Desert Fathers say if you expose a sin to your Father confession, you've won half the battle. What's happening is we're confessing once every blue moon, right? Every 6 months, every ECCYC, every retreat, because we have no intention of uprooting those seeds. But you say, everyone, I hate it. I'm sick of it. I know you do. Don't obsess over it. Work on your spiritual rule. Block at a time. Every psalm, you're putting blocks around your heart that when the devil comes, he's trying to shoot arrows and it's a hard wall. He can't get in. The second thing is that those psalms uproot the evil sins in our life. And I'm going to give you guys an equation that I want you guys to follow. It's a very simple equation. Time plus habits of holiness plus godly encouragement. What is godly encouragement? The environment. Equals spiritual growth. If I ask you, how much have you grown spiritually from this year to 2 years ago? If I said, how were you guys when you guys were freshmen in high school or 8th graders to now? Would you say that you've grown spiritually? Some people say yes. Some people say, maybe I got worse. Things I'm doing now are things I would have never done before. How do you measure your spiritual growth? Number one, it needs time. I'm going to ask you guys every day to go into your schedules and to put aside 15 minutes for God. But for God to do what? For God to make you a mighty Christian, a powerful Christian. Every day you are saying, God, I want you to build walls around my heart. 10 minutes a day. So you need, or 15 minutes a day is time. Plus habits of holiness. What are habits of holiness? The Psalms, yes. What else? Reading your Bible. Prostrations. Fasting. Fasting. Bring that body into subjection. Who fasted Great Lent last year? This year? Wonderful. Good for you guys. When you fasted Lent, the first week, every time you drove by a Five Guys or a Mickey D's, what were you thinking? I would jump out of a moving car to have a cheeseburger, right? I'll do anything to have a cheeseburger. 55 days later, it's Easter, you go to Five Guys, you look at the menu, and all you're thinking of peanuts. You know what? How many of us can attest to looking at the menu and being like, can I really eat something? Can I really have a cheeseburger now? Because why? Because you've disciplined yourself for 55 days, now you have more control. You have more control of yourself. When you go there, you think twice, am I really allowed? Where before, we don't think twice. Of course I can have anything I want. Is it Wednesday? Who cares? Is it Friday? Who cares? Right? But after fasting for 55 days, you've brought your body into subjection. You've gotten control over your body so that now when you go, you're thinking twice, can I do this or not? You know what the fasting does? It gives you self-control. So that on the days when you're thinking, all of a sudden, I have a lust. And I'm thinking, I'm in a spiritual environment, I'm not fulfilling that lust. Why? I have more control. When I am not fasting, I have no control over anything. Right? I have no control over anything. I'm weak. You put anything in front of me, it's going to make me fall. It's going to make me eat. It's going to make me sin because I'm weak. When you discipline yourself, you're building up spiritual muscle. You're building up what? spiritual muscle where you get control over your life. So once again, time, 15 minutes a day. Who can commit to 15 minutes a day? I know, the wife and the kids, they keep you guys busy, right? It's hard, right? You got to pay the bills. 15 minutes a day. 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes. Listen, because I want to go through these. I don't know what just happened, sorry. I'm going to end right here, guys. This is the last slide. Shh, let me get everyone's attention. I'm going to end right here. Time we said is how long? 15 minutes. Time we said is how long? 15 Sabah al-khair. Habits of holiness. 3 Psalms, Matanyas, fasting on our Wednesdays and Fridays. And I want you to do me a favor. I'm going to give you a purpose for your Wednesdays. You're like, Abuna, let's be, come on. Abuna, أصحاب Wednesday. بجد يعني. Every Wednesday. I want every Wednesday for you to fast for your purity and the purity of your friends. Every day. Say, God, I'm going to do matanyas. I'm going to fast. I'm going to kill myself. I hate food. I hate tamay, but I'm going to eat them for you, God, because I want sexual purity. I want purity, God. So I'm going to fast my Wednesdays every Wednesday. And I'm going to do my prostrations. I'm going to say, Lord, I believe you're going to accept my sacrifice. I am offering myself. Remember I said, we can't just stand back and let God change us. And we can't do it with our own selves because we need God's grace, so we're cooperating. How do you put yourself in the posture to receive God's grace? It's through these habits of holiness. Bible reading, attending spiritual meetings, reading your Psalms, prostrations, fasting, reading your Agbayah, growing into these things. Last thing, godly encouragement. Guys, you will never grow without spiritual support. I really hope that you guys would be good support for each other. If you guys can't count on each other to be godly encouragement, Rabbina ma'akum. Sorry guys, there's a nasty world out there. If it's awkward for me to say, hey, why don't we read the Bible tonight? Why don't we go play ball and at the end we can go read the Bible? Is that like the end of the world? Kind of, right? In this generation? To ask any person to read the Bible together is like, just ask me to jump off a cliff. Ya jama'ah, we can't be spiritual babies anymore. You will never survive spiritually. Your heart will never change. Your mind will never change if you do not have godly encouragement. Everybody needs a friend or two that they are going to make a pact. We're going to encourage each other. I'm going to remind you of praying your Psalms. You remind me of my Psalms. At the end of the week, ask me, how many days in a row did I do my Psalms? I did 5 out of 7. All right, next week let's work on 6. Until the point where you do them blindfolded. You don't even think twice. I do my Psalms and my Matanyas, and then Abuna is going to say, make them 6. 6 Matanyas and 6 Psalms. You're like, dalab ayali Abuna. Ma'alish. Abuna, I can do more. No, don't do it until you can do it without thinking. Keep it at 3. But Abuna, I want to do more. Keep it at 3. Why? Until you've made it a habit of holiness. A habit. Do you know how many days it takes to make a habit? 21 days to make a habit out of something. Today, what's the date today? July 30th. Tomorrow is July 31st. So, counting today, we did Matanyas today, we'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow is the 31st, so by August 20th. August 22nd, خلينا جامدين for Siyam al-Adra, okay? August 22nd, you have Siyam al-Adra coming, the fast of St. Mary. God, I promise you every day I'm going to do my Psalms. I'm going to read a little bit of the Bible, and I'm going to do my Matanyas. Can we do it or no? Can you do them or not? We're going to do 15 minutes, habits of holiness, make a pact with my friends, and I guarantee you, your mind will change. You will have a renewed mind. But Abuna, I fell. I don't care. I don't care if you fell 10 times that day. You better do your Psalms and your Matanyas. But Abuna, I feel guilty. What do we say how God deals with sinners? How does God deal with sinners? Does He reject you or not? But Abuna, I'm so ashamed of myself. Don't worry. Run to your Father. He's going to embrace you. He's going to embrace you. He loves you. That was the message of the last talk, right? I believe in this generation. I believe in you guys. I believe in Fira Gelehina. I believe that you guys are going to say, Mafish haga to do 3 Psalms a day. Time plus habits of holiness plus godly encouragement equals spiritual growth. And glory be to God forever. Amen.